course. Okay, awesome. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Stanley Willard. I'm the Assistant Director of Employee Relations at Yale University.
Hi, I'm Liz Brindley. I'm the Group Talent Manager for Enterprise in the Northeast. So we're really excited to be part of the programming committee this year. So we have some great ideas. We've already kind of talked through, I think, last conference, there were some new, fresh ideas that came through, which were awesome. So we're really excited this year to kind of piggyback off of that and kind of continue on some of that momentum. So we'll turn it over to you and kind of answer any questions or any topics that you kind of wanted to chat through.
I mean, I'll start.
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw something out there. So it's been a minute since I've did a conference proposal to Eastern ACE. I know it's always great to sort of have partners in crime, but does having co-presenters or multiple presenters get a better look or have a better chance of being accepted? And what if you have an idea, but you don't know who out there might have a similar idea, so you can't find your partner, right? Does anything happen with this committee to say, you know what, you two are thinking about the same thing, talk to each other, submit something?
Good question. So I think that and I was on the committee in the past, what we've looked at is kind of the audience of the potential uh, speech and kind of what the topics are. So I don't think necessarily having, again, that partner in crime is going to bump you up or bump you down. But if it kind of broadens the audience and the appeal, I think that would be something to kind of, I would recommend maybe playing a focus on within the proposal. Because I think, our goal is really, we don't want it to get, we don't want to be super niche where it's, two people are interested in that topic. So I think the bigger we can kind of make it and kind of get more folks in there. So I think that's a great thought. I personally always enjoy kind of hearing, from two separate sides, the employer, the college, I think is always kind of a nice dynamic there. I don't currently know of any like Match.com type idea, but I really actually kind of like that. If there's a way we can kind of say like, hey, if I'm interested in partnering or some ideas. I know last year after the proposals were in, there was some talk of, okay, well, let's chat with this person and see, can we combine something? Can we adjust? But that was after the proposals were in. So I know Jenny just joined, so I don't know if Stanley, Jenny, so if there's anything not aware of with that kind of partnership matching system, but I think that's a really interesting idea.
We haven't had it in the past. I've been on this particular committee a couple of times previously, and we haven't in the past. But that's something we might be able to speak to the conference committee for 2027 about. And Zoe from headquarters is here too, so that may be an idea that we can take back to the leadership team for the 2027 conference. But as of right now, we don't have that, and we haven't in the past. But it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea because, as Zoe and I were briefly chatting before everyone else jumped on, just the idea of enhancing our proposals and the types of proposals we get, I definitely think it would be more encouraging to those interested. If there's a way, like I have this idea and would love to just work through it with someone, they may be more encouraged to submit their proposal instead of not submitting their proposal. So, and we also have things in place to kind of help with those. Like we have different formats instead of like the 60-minute session where you have to kind of plan out the whole 60 minutes, which, maybe you don't want to go to that level. But again, I think the ability to potentially, hey, I have similar ideas to someone else, let's work together and create something from that, I think will be more encouraging to get proposals in moving forward. So again, thanks for, sharing that suggestion, Rich.
You're welcome. Good luck to 2027.
Yeah.
And a thought on that too is in between now and when the proposals are due, you could come to some of the programs we're having. I don't know if anyone's in New York City, but we're having on Thursday a meetup in New York. You can always talk to your fellow members at these different programs and see if there's something that you could talk about and then turn that into something. I know some members have done that in the past where they've, you know, jointly presented on something when they all sort of realized that they were doing similar work. So definitely a shameless plug to come to different events and meet other members.
That's awesome. I'd say Paul just put something in the chat. You know, it looks like the idea is already off and running of you know, potentially you know, finding partners to continue to talk through ideas. So that's amazing. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Jenny, while we have a moment.
Sure. I'm sorry that I was late finishing lunch and attempting to warm up my tea. We blew a fuse here at William Patterson, the Career Center. But I'm Jenny Nessenjuk. I'm the Senior Assistant Director for Employer Engagement and Corporate Partnerships at William Patterson University in Wayne, New Jersey. I'm one of the co-chairs for the Programming Keynotes Committee for the 2026 conference. This is my fourth or fifth conference I've worked on. And I'm also the co-chair for the Working Parents Affinity Group that we host as well.
Thank you, Jenny. I was going to say, like, while if anyone's still considering questions or thinking about questions, I did just put the call for proposals link, which I'm sure everyone has looked at. But prior to this point, you know, Liz, Jenny, and the rest of our committee definitely put a lot of work into updating it and trying to make things clearer for everybody. To navigate the process of putting together your proposal. So just want to make sure everyone had that readily available and had that in front of them. And they might, you know, come up with a few additional questions. But I do know, like, we definitely put a lot of concerted effort into updating that form and trying to make it as clear and straightforward as possible and easy to follow along so that everyone could understand, like, what the general expectations were, the different types of different types of presentations, different topics that we're looking for and things like that. So just want to make sure everyone was actively saw that, looked at it, and had that in front of them.
And just on the first page for the call of proposals, there are some kind of ideas and some topics that, you know, we kind of came together and say these seem to kind of be the hot topics out there and the things that, you know, kind of on professionally we're hearing a lot about and we're seeing a lot about with different conferences, but those are not an all-inclusive list. So as you're thinking about if that sparks an idea and it kind of goes another way, please submit. You know, we're not looking for just those areas, but we were trying to give just some good starting off points, some good, you know, what are people really interested in, and what are kind of the hot topics that we've continued to talk about. But again, we're not just looking for those ideas at all.
The other thing I want to mention is having been on this committee at one point before, the more information you can put into your proposal, the more details you can include, the better. Speaking from experience, there have been proposals in the past that have been submitted where the committee has had lots of questions. And so one of the ways that you can increase your chances of having your proposal submitted is to give us as much detail as possible about your topic, about what you plan to do in your session. If you have interactive components, what those look like. So this is not a less is more kind of thing. This is a more is more. We want to know what you are bringing to the table and what you're planning to share in your session if you are chosen. So please make sure that you're including enough detail about your topic, about how you plan to present, and how you plan to engage session attendees.
One thing that we saw last year, kind of reviewing, that I'll just draw attention to was some folks had in their proposal who else they've presented to, what other audiences, other impacts, takeaways, which I thought that was kind of a unique idea to kind of think about, okay, here's, you know, some other ways that I've used this before, just to kind of give an idea of the audience. And I think especially those takeaways were really key. So Jenny's 1,000% right. Like if we can really clearly understand, okay, if this room of people are going to learn this or understand this, grow in this area, super, super helpful. So just, if you've done something, even if it's within your own institution, it doesn't have to be on a big scale, but that was some interesting information that was included a lot last year.
Can I ask a question as a follow-up? Hi, I'm Jordan. I work at Yeshiva University. It's nice to meet everybody. Hi, quick question. In terms of the proposals and everything like that, talking about presentations and everything, if we have had specific success on an endeavor and as a career center, and we wanted to discuss this with different types of venues, applying for different types of presentations across different areas, would that be a negative or positive thing in terms of the application itself? So in other words, submitting similar proposals to different types of conferences.
Personally, I don't think, to me as a committee member, it matters to me how many conferences you submit the proposal to. The only thing I would say is if you've already presented this same topic and content at Eastern ACE previously, then I wouldn't recommend submitting it again. However, if you submitted the proposal last year and were not chosen to present, please submit it again. If you're thinking of submitting this for NACE, that's fine. Not everybody that comes to Eastern ACE goes to NACE also, and we certainly know that there's other folks at NACE because it's national. So I would say, from a professional standpoint, submit your proposal to as many conferences as you want to. That's fantastic. I hope you get accepted to all of them. That's like a dream. The only thing I would say is if you've already presented this content at Eastern ACE, probably in the last like 3 years or so, then I would pick a new topic to submit a proposal for our particular conference.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Good question.
Has anybody looked at the form? If anyone's thinking of doing a proposal, have you looked at the form? Do you have any questions about specifics on the form?
Oh, I do, if I may.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Teresa O'Neill, Rutgers University Newark Senior Program Coordinator. I noticed how you requested, like, what's the format of your presentation? Case study, workshop, lecture? How do you differentiate between them, especially the workshop and the lecture, because they seem very similar to me?
Do you guys want me to answer it, or you want to answer? When do you want to take it? The lecture is essentially, and I hate to put it this way, talking heads, so to speak. It's where you're really just disseminating information. And a workshop is more interactive. Maybe you have an activity or two that you are planning to throw in there to engage attendees. But a lecture is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You can also do a panel. We've had panels in the past. When we talk about format, I participated in one a couple of years ago, where you have several people and you're talking on a topic. Ours happened to be about the DEI committee here for Eastern ACE. That was what the panel, and there were several members of that committee. So you can do a panel also. But if you have an interactive component, which I personally, having been to Eastern ACE many times, and also being on the programming committee many times, would encourage you all to do is to have an interactive component. That would be a workshop. If you are just planning to disseminate information on something that's happening at your institution or something that you've done, research or something of that sort, then it's a lecture. Does that help?
And
Yes, thank you.
And then underneath that section, one of the boxes that's a free type is session outline. And that's where you can kind of put more of the details. So like if you're not sure what exactly it is, we do read all of the details to kind of make sure we fully understand. Because I think, Tracy, you bring up a good point. People could interpret things differently. So that's a great place to kind of say specifically, here's, I'm going to have group discussion for 10 minutes and then bring back or whatever. That's good information there.
No AI. We're not using any AI to read any of these proposals.
Yeah, I know.
We have a committee of humans, committee of human Eastern ACE members who will be reading all of the proposals. And I don't know if Liz and Stanley mentioned, but we have a rubric that the committee will use for each proposal, and they'll be, I guess, like graded, so to speak, against the rubric. And based on the scores, that will determine who we invite to present.
Thank you.
No AI for 2027. No, we need some. But Rich, I like your sense of humor.
I am looking at the proposal right now. Oh, sorry. Sarah Palmer, University of Delaware. I work with engineering and
So
technology
Katie,
employers.
hang on 1 second. Katie, I see your question. We're going to take Sarah's and then we will come back to your question in the chat and we'll answer that for you.
I am looking at the submission form right now. So there, even if you're co-presenting with someone, only one person submits this form. There's not a way both of us can submit the same form, right?
No, so what'll happen is there's a button to check co-presenter, and when you check that,
Okay.
that will open up all of that same information, name, title, bio, all of that information. But only one of you needs to submit it, but you'll be able to put
Okay.
multiple names on it when you complete the form.
Great. And we can't, like, we go in and submit this in one go. We can't save it and come back to it.
Correct.
Thanks.
So what I've done in the past and what I recommend is I literally will, I have done in the past, full transparency, is either copy and pasted the website or just
Mhm.
into the website. And then I create a Word document where I complete each of the
Right.
questions. And then I work out of a Word document. And when I'm ready, then I go, and my co-presenters in the past, when we've been ready
Yeah.
to be with it, we'll then go in and paste it into the online form and click submit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank
Now,
you.
here's the thing, after you've submitted it, if there are changes you need to make, you can email Stanley and Liz and myself.
Okay.
And we may be able to edit it from the back end, Zoe, or we will share that information with the committee when we meet to review the proposal.
Mhm.
So nothing is set in stone. If you submit it and you're like, oh no, I
Okay.
forgot to include, or I want to change something, just send us an email.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Katie put a question in chat. Can you give more specific information about the rubric and what is being scored? Liz, you want to take that
Yep.
one?
Yeah. So we look at a couple different things, and we do the scoring in pairs. So 2 people will be assigned to look at the same proposal, so we get multiple eyes on it to get multiple viewpoints. We do look at the relevance to the conference and to kind of the audience. How clear are the objectives? So kind of like we mentioned, what are we going to get from this? Is that super clear? We also do look at that engagement piece. So Jenny mentioned, I think the more, that engagement, when you go to conferences, everyone, just kind of looks for that. So I think being clear again on what that engagement is going to look like. How do you anticipate you're going to ensure everyone does, or to the best of their ability, engage with each other and participate? And then I think just kind of the transferableness, the practicality of the information. So what you're presenting, how are people going to take that back and put it into practice? And that can be a couple different ways. It doesn't have to be, a copy and paste, but is this something that they're going to internalize and think personally about themselves? Is it something that they're going to be able to, manage a team differently? It's been better if they're going to engage their students in a different way. So there's not one size fits all for that, but just kind of thinking about the audience and what are they going to be able to take away from there. So those are kind of the big pictures that we look at.
Yeah, I definitely want to emphasize that last part that Liz mentioned about the takeaways. I think when we're reviewing these, we're definitely going to have an eye on that ultimate part of, okay, you're doing great work and there's a lot of great research and things happening, best practices, but ultimately, what is the audience taking away? So definitely when you're doing your proposals, try to be very clear in that part. What are the takeaway, the objectives that you want people to have from your session?
Katie, did that answer your question? Awesome.
Can I ask one more question to kind of follow up on what we just mentioned? In terms of the types of proposals and different types of workshops, things that you're leading, I know you just mentioned engagement and not all the different types of presentations have engagement. Is there a certain number of each that you're looking for? Is it more along the lines of, okay, we have a certain number of applications and therefore we're going to kind of alter the schedule?
Go ahead, Liz.
So I can tell you last year, we didn't have like a quota for any one type of. We really were looking at the impact. We were looking at kind of the diversity of the topics. I think that was something that we definitely obviously read about and kind of it played a factor into, okay, so this is going to be an impactful, but it was not okay, we want 10 of these, 10 of these, 10 of these. And we really want, the most impactful the most, the ones that are going to draw people's attention and encourage them to keep, attending the conference. So I think really thinking more about what's the best way to present your information versus what's going to get me selected is how I would think about that section there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The other thing we've done in the past is we have looked at topics, right? So we're not going to overload on one topic. So, AI is huge and kind of what we're doing in the employment space, in hiring, recruiting, what we're doing in career services using AI. If we have 20 people that submit proposals on AI, we're not going to offer spots to all 20 of those folks. So we do try to spread the wealth in terms of topic. So, just also, and there's nothing you can really do about that because you don't know what topics other folks are putting in. But what I will say, you increase your chances of being selected if you complete the entire proposal form, if you give us a lot of detail, if you are including interactive components, if you are clear on the takeaways that attendees will have. So those are the things that will increase your chances of having your proposal selected from, if there happen to be an abundance of folks submitting on your same topic.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything else? Looks like we're up to date in the chat. Well, if there's nothing, what's the word? The worst practice in proposals.
Here, I'll tell you my opinion, not completing your proposal form.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing you can do is not to complete your proposal form. We've had that happen in the past, and right away that will not have you, we won't consider anybody who doesn't complete the entire proposal form. And if you can believe it, we've had people in the past who have not, or they've given us very little information. A couple of years ago, I chaired this same committee and we had somebody who didn't complete their proposal form. And then under one of the key sections where we really needed a lot of information, wrote us 2 sentences. So that was an automatic no for us. So that is really the worst practice, is not to complete the proposal form in its entirety.
Yeah, I think that clarity piece, if it's really confusing, convoluted, it's tough to read through. I would recommend having somebody read the proposal that's not in your space. So someone who's not familiar maybe with the topic, or they don't work with it often, and see if they understand what your objectives are, what the focus is going to be. That's kind of a good way to catch it, to make sure, because our committee is made up of people with a lot of different backgrounds and experiences and in different spaces. So I think that would be a good way to make sure that it's super clear, everyone can kind of understand what you're really driving at. Because to Jenny, I think Jenny's point, like there's a lot of questions sometimes where like I'm not quite sure what they're getting at. So to make that clarity would be.
I would also say if you're considering a proposal, maybe you're not 100% sure, start working on it sooner rather than later. It does take time to put it together. And if you really want to give it the attention it needs, it's not a 2-day thing. I'll be honest, I submitted my proposal because I didn't know the deadline last year. I wrote my proposal in 2 days. That's not a great practice to do. I do not recommend it. It was very stressful. And while it was a good proposal, it was definitely not my best proposal. And in full transparency, it was not accepted for last year's conference. And I think that's because it was rushed. So if you are thinking about submitting a proposal, I would say we have about 5 weeks at this point. Start working on it now if you're really considering submitting.
Yep. And we're also available for questions. There's a link on the page, so feel free to shoot us a note, question. We're happy to kind of give our guidance or our opinion on anything for sure. Great. Well, I think we're it seems like we're all set with questions. Again, please feel free to use us. We're resources for you. Feel free to share with your colleagues that they can certainly send us messages if they weren't able to attend. It is recorded, as Zoe mentioned before, so we will hopefully answer some questions of others, but we're definitely here to have some open communication and dialogue as you're creating your proposals, and we're super excited to see what we get.
Thank you for everybody coming out.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.